everybody, I hope you're all fantastic. Today we're going to take a quick look at the Strymon DiG side by side with the Boss SDE-3000 EVH. Boss also make a non-EVH version of this pedal that doesn't have Eddie's presets or the wet dry wet routing options. I'm not going to be using those today anyway, so you could easily substitute either version of the Boss pedal in here. This is a V1 DiG. Strymon have released a version 2 DiG, which has an external filter control and a few other additions like MIDI. So again, not using any of those features on here. We're just going to check out the overall tones and I guess the workflow on each of these delays. They obviously don't look anything like one another. The DiG is just a bunch of knobs and some switches, whereas the Boss is going out to emulate what the old rack unit was doing. So you can immediately see what your delay time, your feedback, your modulation rates are on the Boss. You can tweak them with these push buttons. Again, it's all based on the Roland SDE-3000. I think they've done a very good job of emulating that workflow. The DiG is its own thing. It's very much built for players who never use rack delays, who are used to using pedals, but they might want those sounds. And I've done some deep dive videos with the DiG. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite pedals, let alone delay pedals ever. So I just want to compare the core sounds in here and talk about, I think, the pros and the cons of each approach on here, because, you know, I think most people, if they own a delay pedal, they should probably own one of these, just because they're pretty inspiring, they're pretty powerful, and of course, like I said, they sound great. So I have set this up to start with my bread and butter dual delay sound, which is a quarter note delay on one side, a dotted eighth note delay on the other side. They're running in parallel. The DiG lets you access parallel routing, series routing, and series ping pong routing by a combination of holding down some buttons and twisting knobs. You kind of need the manual, or you need a better memory than I do to access those. On the Boss, you go into the setup section and go to master, where you can access what is going on with the overall structure in there. So we will hear some series delays. I'm using parallel routing mode number 2 over here. So quarter note, dotted eighth note in parallel, quarter note, dotted eighth note in parallel. Both units are running 100% wet. They are in separate loops of my Axe-Fx 3, and I can switch between them with a multiplexer. So we're going to start on just the digital delay mode, 2496 on the DiG, and no filtering on the SDE. I've done my best to sync up the delay times over here, and I'm just going to switch back and forth between them without telling you which one is which. Let's have a listen. I'm well aware that this testing methodology is by no means perfect, but I do want you to hear this just kind of in the context of playing guitar. That's why I'm using a distorted guitar sound, because it's how I use delay most of the time. If you're used to using clean sounds, you may be able to pick up certain different nuances in there that you can hear that may be desirable or non-desirable. But the point of that is that you probably can't tell which one of these units I was using there. There is additional filtering available on these units. So there's the ability to basically set high and low pass filters in the SDE to whatever you like. The DiG has a secondary function for a tone control, but what I'm going to do is just flick to the 12-bit mode on the DiG, and I'm going to kick in the SDE, you know, original style filter on each of these delays, and we'll do the same thing on each unit. let's go to some modulation now. I've got the rate at 15 and the depth at 10 on the Boss. I'm going to hit that on. Again, I really like that you've got dedicated buttons per function on here. Let's just go to the deep setting on the DiG. And again, I'm not going to tell you which one is which. This is the part of the comparison that surprised me quite a lot. The overall range of the depth and rate on the SDE modulation is way wider than even the deep setting on the DiG, and you can see that I've had to increase the overall output on the SDE just to kind of match what's going on with the level. So just the filter on its own on the SDE is pretty subtle. However, the filter and the modulation really changes up the character on there. I'll let you hear that one. Just the dual delay with filter and mod turned off, then I will kick them both on. The delay mix is probably a little bit pronounced on both of them for playing lead. I like it as a rhythmic delay, but you can hear the effect that both the filter and the modulation had on the Boss. The DiG is, again, more subtle in the way it's implementing these things. Like if I switch over to the DiG and we just hear the difference between 2496 with no modulation and then 12-bit with no modulation and then deep modulation. It's not quite as pronounced as the differences that those are having on the SDE. So that's kind of the main tonal thing that I found in here. You can get into the SDE, and for each delay, you can actually tweak the overall EQ, filtering stuff that's going on. Here we go, that's what I'm looking for. Words are hard sometimes. You can have the filtering on the repeat set to be original, so it's like the original SDE, or you can set it for user. So I've set it up to be an 80 Hertz low cut and a 6.3K high cut. I can go back to the setup section and do the same thing for delay number 2 over here. Let's do that. We'll set it up so that it is on user. I've got the same offsets on there. So let's just have a listen to what that sort of filtering does on each of these. I'm going to leave the modulation on each of those. I'll make sure I'm back on the SDE. Let's hear that. I do like that you've got the ability to go in and set your own repeat filtering on there. You can use the secondary mode of the DiG. I'll show you how that works. Essentially, it's going to be this mix control over here. So I think if you do that and kind of turn it to the left, the repeats get a bit darker. Let's hear it with no filtering and then with some filtering. That's quite close to my ideal delay setup on the DiG. A little bit of filtering, some modulation, the 12-bit mode. It really does sound fantastic. The biggest drawback for me is that they are secondary functions on there. Every time I use this pedal, I've got to get the manual out and remember how to set up the various functions on there. So the other thing that, well, I love about the DiG, I thought it was pretty unique to it until this SDE pedal came out, is the ability to run 2 ping pong delays in series. It's a pretty awesome thing to have set up. I'm actually going to switch over to a clean sound for that now so that you can hear it. But the way we would do that on the DiG is, again, we use a secondary function on the Mix 2 control. So I'll let you basically hear the difference between series delays, series ping pong, and just parallel. I think I'm on parallel at the moment. So I'm in series ping pong mode on the DiG. I've switched over to a clean sound. Added some more repeats on here. Let's get this set up on the Roland. We're going to hit setup. We'll come all the way down to the master section over here, hit setup again, and we'll go to series for the structure. Now we have to go back to each delay. So go digital delay 1, and I'll set up whether it is I don't want to change that at all. We're going to set up whether it is a stereo delay or a pan delay, as they call it. It's actually a ping pong delay. And let's go to DDL2 and do the same thing. We'll come down to the type. We'll go pan. Okay, so I've got a quarter note and a dotted eighth note delay in series. Same thing happening over here. What I'm going to do on each of these is I'm going to increase the feedback. Let's take the dotted eighth note up to around, say, 50%. And I'll go maybe 35-ish% or something like that on the quarter note delay. And I've got modulation on. I've got the filtering on. Play around with the delay phase and some other things if I want to do that, or add the time times 2 button on there for longer delays. But let's just start out with the DiG, and I'll switch over to the Roland so we can hear the difference. So in that case, I needed to crank up the modulation and the output on the SDE to get close to what the DiG is doing. But again, because the DiG can kind of filter all of the repeats, not just subsequent ones after the initial repeat, you can create this amazing ambient wash on there really, really easily. I think it's even better when you put the DiG on the golden ratio mode on there. And, you know, let's tap in some slow tempos over here and just have a listen to what that does. But the Roland sounds really, really good as a series ping pong delay, but the DiG has something about it. I think that's one of the strong parts of that pedal, is that that series ping pong mode is just voiced so musically, and it is set up to do those ambient delay things so well. Let's hear it now. I've tapped in a solid tempo and I've got the golden ratio thing going on. Trying to totally quantify what makes a particular delay unit special compared to another one and do a very fair side-by-side comparison to them is way more complex than what I've been doing in this video. There's definitely been an element of kind of chasing my own tail with these, where I'll try to match the SDE to the DiG and then I won't quite get it, but I'll really like it, and I go back and try to match the DiG to that, and I end up with these kind of, rather than converging delay sounds, it's almost like you go, hey, that's cool. I didn't know that the other unit could do that. You follow it in that direction. I think the fact that they are laid out differently definitely pushes you down different musical avenues. You know, the fact that you've got instant recall and access to anything that you're doing on the Roland, to me, makes me want to go, you know what, I don't want the rate at 11, I want it at exactly 10. I end up in this kind of like everything's got to be a multiple of 5 or a perfectly synced rhythmic delay. There is this precision about this unit that is very attractive. The DiG doesn't really give you that precision because you've got knobs on there and you've got these predetermined modulation settings and modes on there. There's a whole lot of sound design that has really gone into making the DiG good, and the fact that it's a really good sounding delay unit ignores the fact that, you know, Pete Selly at Strymon is an absolutely brilliant sound designer and has put so many of those options on rails for us to just plug in and make inspiring sounds. I really admire that about everything Strymon, and I think Pete is such a major factor in that. It's really, really, really easy to undersell how important good sound design and user interface layout is on something like the DiG. You initially look at it and go, well, how good is this going to be? And then the hours go by as you play with all the beautiful sounds in it. The Boss, you know, it's a reincarnation of another classic unit, the SDE-3000. People have been using those and still use those rack units. They are amazing for the time, and they're still amazing today, but they were one of the first units to give musicians that extra precision in there. So this kind of carries on that legacy of precision in there. This is definitely a lot more, I won't say versatile, but that precision comes with responsibility. So if you're a delay junkie and you want a floor-based unit that can give you instant access to all your favorite delay parameters and also be a really powerful delay workstation, this or the regular version I think are going to be really, really attractive to you. If you're just a guitar player who wants to plug in and twist knobs and see where you end up, then the DiG is definitely for you. They can both do a lot of the same sounds. I think that's a takeaway here. They both sound fantastic. The different workflows are going to appeal to different players. That's kind of the point. They're at different price points as well. You could argue that the DiG definitely gives you more bang for your buck. It's a few hundred Australian dollars cheaper than this version over here. Lacks some of the routing options and some of the control. I would love to see a DiG V3 that puts all the secondary functions on the front panel. I've said that before though, so I'll just play you all out with one of these units, whatever one it is. Thanks so much for watching. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments. If you like what I'm doing on the channel, check the video description. You can support what I do. I think I have 1 second left of video left.